up, everybody? OCD Mikey, Hi-Fi Guy here for another episode of The Mikey Show. And today I am going to give you another dark truth. It's not really dark. It's just something that is said or thought by audio fools, if you will, audio bozos, audio clowns, because there are many out there. I might be one of them. I'm probably the biggest one. Here is a very misleading thought, statement, idea, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that you need mil-spec components inside your amplifier, your DAC, whatever. Ooh, mil-spec, okay? There are people out there that really don't want to buy anything unless it's mil-spec parts inside, okay? Absolutely foolish. Let me describe something to you. Let me tell you, here's the truth and the reality of it. Mil-spec parts are simply ruggedized parts, okay? If you think about the military, what does the military do? They run around in tanks, helicopters, in the mud, in the jungle, in the wet, in the heat, and the most tumultuous sort of environment that you could imagine for electronics. So mil-spec simply means ruggedized. They're meant to handle vibration. They're meant to handle high heat. They're meant to handle shock. And that is what makes something mil-spec. And in fact, there are many attributes about something that is mil-spec that make it poor for audio. For instance, resistors. You look at resistors and capacitors. When they're mil-spec, a lot of times you'll see that the arms, the little lead outs that come off those capacitors or resistors, are made from a steel alloy. That is so that they are strong, and after repeated vibration, they don't break and come off the board, okay? In audio, we want copper legs. We do not want steel, okay? Steel has high resistance. It's not something that we want for audio signal, for sound, okay? So a mil-spec resistor is not going to be typically something that we want for audio. We want an audio spec or even just a standard spec, something that uses copper or a copper alloy, not steel or a steel alloy. So really, mil-spec means ruggedized. If you look at wire, mil-spec means heat resilience. You know, they want it to use, they're going to use it in airplanes. They're going to use it next to engines where it's extremely hot. So Teflon or PTFE, mil-spec wire, is good for heat. Okay, it's good for chemical resistance. If you spill oil or hydraulic fluid on it, it's not going to eat through the insulation. Okay, so mil-spec does not mean good for audio. Okay, whatsoever. In some cases, you might have something that lines up that makes it good for audio. In the case of a mil-spec vacuum tube, especially the Russian type vacuum tubes, especially the super tubes, the Russian super tubes, you find the ones that are military spec because they're used for military communications, so they need to be very well matched. So in that case, mil-spec, the fallout of mil-spec is that, and it's a byproduct of being mil-spec, is that it just so happens to be good for audio. That is happenstance, okay? And that's great when it happens like that. But most of the time, military spec simply means ruggedized, good for high heat, good for if you spill chemicals or hydraulic fluids on it or oil, and good for high heat applications, okay? That's generally, it's a ruggedized case. It's a ruggedized package that they put it in. It's ruggedized build, okay? And again, I've just said it, I think, 100 times. It doesn't mean it's good for audio. And the people that think you need mil-spec stuff, it's just silly. It's one of those things. Now, a funny part about that is due to our craziness, shall I call it, in hi-fi, our nutty hi-fi things that we think are important because we think we know what the hell's going on when we really don't know our head from our ass. When it comes to building a circuit, unless you're a double E, and then if you're a double E, you still probably, unless you specialize in audio, high-end audio design, then you still probably don't know too much about what's going to make something sound good, okay? You could be a double E and doing building electronic boards for HVAC equipment or for automobile cruise controls. A lot of different things. It doesn't mean audio, okay? So a lot of these things. Now, here's a point that I wanted to make, okay? Asian countries, namely China, who likes to make cheap stuff and copy it and copy our, everybody and their brother, and then try and make something that is high end. They know about the mil-spec. They know what us stupid audio fools look for. We look for WEMA caps. We look for the red WEMA caps. We look for mil-spec stuff. So if you look at the marketing, they're going to bullet all the stuff that our psychoses feeds on in terms of audio purchasing. Oh, really? It's got mil-spec? That must be good. That means it's important. Oh, it's got the red WEMA caps, which are most likely knockoff bootleg WEMA caps, not made in Germany. Oh, it's got the red WEMA caps. Ooh, it's got film and foil, and there's so many, there's, in the advent of the, customer, the end user, trying to get their head into the parts that go into, think about it. Is there any other industry where we do this? Do you look at a Porsche and go, well, what kind of water pump do they use in the GT3 RS? What kind of bearings does it have? I'm not going to buy it if it's got ceramic bearings. I really want stainless steel bearings, or vice versa, or whatever. Do you ask what type of rubber do they use in the hoses for the cooling system? I don't want anything that has butyl rubber. I want silicone only, or whatever. These are silly, man. Get your head out of the engineering space, because you're not a freaking engineer. And if you are, did you did you go to Porsche school and all that kind of stuff? Probably not, So, to get into what the parts are is really, it's misleading, man. I'm not saying that it's total bullshit, okay? But I'm saying it's at least half bullshit, okay? And it's a good way to take advantage of you guys, is to puff up what parts are in there, when really I could fake the parts. If I know you want to buy you like red capacitors because you think they're WEMA, I can knock off red parts and make them, and it'll help me sell. I know one DAC in particular that has a whole bunch of capacitors in there that's made in China. And man, this thing is a testament. It's the poster child for knockoff parts and for getting into the head of the audiophile to try and make them feel like, ooh, look at all the capacitors, and wow, there's WEMA in there, and there's Nishikon in there, and all this stuff. When I've done Spec and measured and found that they're bootleg parts. So it's an easy way to take advantage of you. The bottom line is you need to listen to the product, and you need to take it on its own merits. I just wanted to make you guys aware that it's easy to take advantage of you if I start bringing you down the smoke and mirrors pathway, which is to try and tell you about if the parts are mil-spec, if they're not, if it's film and foil, if it's not an op-amp, it's a discrete op-amp, or any of these things. Now, sure, they can make differences in poorly designed gear. You can take an op-amp out. Op-amp is going to measure much better than a discrete op-amp, okay? A monolithic silicon op-amp. In some designs, in the poor designs, you can greatly change. You can take out that little four-legged op-amp chip, and you can put in a esoteric level, and it will improve in Chinese stuff. Let's say, for instance, a great way to improve Chinese stuff is to put in a discrete op-amp that has all the little resistors and everything on. They're big. They're $50 to $100 each, rather than that little four-legged little cootie bug thing that goes in there. In the well-designed stuff, in AGD, in Jeff Rowland, there's no way you're going to put in a discrete op-amp and beat the way that they've designed that op-amp in, okay? They know design, and the guys that make the cheap stuff don't know design, okay? So they know it somewhat, okay, yeah, it's not that they don't know it, okay? They know it, but they don't know how to make things really. They're not steeped in audio excellence, okay? They're copycats, okay? So they're going to try, and then the way to swoon you is to say, ooh, mil-spec parts, ooh, WEMA, and all these different things, and it's very misleading, and all I have to do, it's all marketing and fluff when you really get down to it. You have to listen to your products. I mean, the moral of the story is don't buy something because you think it's got good parts. Buy something because it sounds good, okay? Count on your ears. Don't count on anything but your own ears. That is the moral of the story. So I just wanted to make that quick point. Thanks for joining. See you.